Hey, what's up? Fortune here, and the day is finally here. The day of the big announcement. Maybe some smaller announcements too. But without further ado, let's get to it. First off, who's Fortune? Me. I'm Fortune. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. But seriously, Fortune is the trail name I was given at the beginning of my PCT Thru-Hike of 2022. And now it's just what I'm known by on Thru-Hikes, regular hikes, section hikes, mountain summiting here on this channel. I'm Fortune. You could say it's the rebirth, the new birth of me in my beginning endeavors in Thru-Hikes and long hikes. But for those who are new to the channel, let's give a little background of who I am, what I'm all about, what I've done, and where I'm going with this whole thing before we get into the big announcement. So in 2022, I had really just started summiting mountains, been hiking my whole life, been walking long distances my whole life, jogging, very active life, and summited my first mountain just a few months before I actually went on the PCT, and I realized how much a part of me that really was. I've gotten into it before on my videos, so if you've been following me, you have heard bits and pieces of this, if not all of it, depending on how many videos you've seen, I guess. But I'm a conqueror. I've had a somewhat tragic life and a lot of death, tragedy, and bad health for myself. And when I climbed that mountain, that first one, and it was not easy, I actually went down 3 times and kept going. I added a lot of miles on to summit that mountain that day. It was very hard on me because I was basically recovering from very bad prognosis and trying to get my body strong. And somewhere in the next month or two after that first summit, and then summiting mountain after mountain after mountain, and realizing this is really a symbol of who I am in life, that overcoming no matter what's put in front of me. The only difference was this time I was choosing what was put in front of me and deciding that I wanted to conquer the tallest, hardest things that scared the crap out of me, so to speak. And somewhere along the lines, I decided I'm going to go do the PCT. So I did. It was all done within like a 30-day, maybe 30 to 60 day window, in which I got lucky and got one of the last permits there were, and started at the very end of May in the desert. And there I was on the PCT, walking 2,650 miles on my first Thru-Hike. And like I said earlier in this video, it was around that time that I got the name Fortune. You could definitely see some other videos where that has been mentioned and how I got that name. That's for a different video though, and definitely will be talked about again, but there's other things that need to be done on this video. So I got on the PCT, and day one walked and started throwing up. It was not good. It was some violent projectile kind of stuff. Not to be too gross, but just to be blunt. And I was in the desert, and I was a long way from the next water, and I was a long way from where I'd already gotten water. I had 3 liters of water with me, was plenty of water, was very prepared. One thing you can't be prepared for, though, is a stomach flu in the desert on day 1 of a Thru-Hike. Well, I laugh about it now, I chuckle about it now, but it was a very serious day. Long story short, I've talked about it in other videos. You can check out the beginning of the PCT video to get more information. But basically, I was in very critical condition and had to be rescued from there and taken to a hospital, in where they had to do a lot of work on me to get me back to good. And they confirmed there that it was a stomach flu. It was not something caught from, the water in the desert I was drinking from, or heat exhaustion or anything like that. I mean, it was quite cool that morning for the most part until it started getting warmer. it's the desert. Obviously, it's going to get warm at some point, especially at the end of May. But it wasn't that bad for the end of May. And I was getting very sick before then. The problem was I was getting very dehydrated because I was throwing up anything that I drank. And then I was running out of water and I had nothing left to drink. So it got me to a very critical condition. But I went back and started my day 2, right back where I left off. And kept going. And for about 3 weeks, I was in a lot of pain in my back. And I was getting worried that it was like a kidney or something that was maybe stemmed from that first day when I was in critical condition. And to be honest, almost died. If it wasn't for the rescue people that came to get me, I was kind of done for. Did not have what I needed, as I had got myself in a critical condition at night when it started getting cold and I had no water. I couldn't move, I couldn't walk anymore. It was pretty bad. But obviously, you know, that was a trying day and a stressful day on my body. And all of a sudden, for the next 3 weeks, I'm hiking along up and down these desert mountains and my back just will not stop. Just feeling like it's ripping in half. And I had no idea what was going on. So I decided to get off trail and go to my doctor. And from there, the doctor looked at me and said, well, Fortune, he actually used my real name, or my first name. Fortune is my real name, but it's not my first name, I guess. But he said, you have a compressed fracture on your T7. And so, in layman's terms, I had a broken back. I literally cheered. He thought I was nuts, didn't understand why I would be cheering about this. And I said, because I thought it was my kidney. I thought it was an organ of some sort, because no matter what I did, I could not relieve the pain. And he said, well, it's a compressed fracture, and I'd like you to come back here, I think it was the next day or the day after, and do a density test, because this should not be happening, even though, you know, you're in your 40s. This is not normal. This shouldn't be happening. So we want to do these tests to see why it's happening. So went for the density test, and come to find out I had the beginning stages of osteoporosis at the ripe age of 47. Not much you could do at this point. He said that he'd rather not put me on prescription. I said, I don't want to be put on prescription. I don't want any painkillers or anything, because I'm planning on going back and finishing the PCT. And he said, well, let me give you a few just in case. Because you need to be able to sleep and rest. You need to be able to manage that pain. I said, fine, I think like a dozen or so, whatever you can give around that. And if I use them, I use them. If not, then great. Just, you know, in case of emergency. So I did. Outside of Excedrin and ibuprofen, I never took any one of those prescription pain meds. And I continued on the PCT for another 100+ days with a fractured back and osteoporosis. I decided during that, by the way, the PCT, I did everything I could, but it was a very bad year for wildfires, and there was part of it I was not able to finish because the wildfires turned into snow at the end of the day, and I was not able to get to those sections before winter set in. So those sections need to be redone to finish the PCT. But it was at that time I decided I'm doing the Appalachian Trail next year, and then I'm going to do the CDT, which you had the PCT at 2,600 miles, Appalachian Trail 2,200 miles, CDT is about 3,100 miles. And those three together make up the triple crown of thru-hiking. And I decided I'm doing it. I'm going to take them on and I'm going to conquer it. So that's what I did. And last year, being 2023, I took on the Appalachian Trail. And funny thing though, in between the PCT and the Appalachian Trail, which was only a few months, I wasn't looking for anyone, and she wasn't looking for anyone, but I met the love of my life and fell in love. But because I had already made up my mind to go on the Appalachian Trail, and she knew that as well, that was something that needed to be done, because that was part of the journey I had to go on. Overcoming and conquering and putting it in the bag as a victory. So I started in February in 2023 of the Appalachian Trail, getting ready to put that thru-hike in the bag as well. Now again, let's go back to the PCT. That did not get finished. There was still a few hundred more miles that I need to do, and I had made up my mind that I was going to go do the Appalachian Trail first and do the PCT either after the Appalachian Trail that year, meaning last year or this year, or do it at the very end of all 3 of them, so that way it could almost have that beautiful starting with the PCT, almost dying on the PCT, but going back and ending on the PCT. There's something beautiful about that. So that was also in my head as far as finishing that way. But at the end of the day, the PCT has a lot of wildfires, and it's really just when I can get to it to get it done, what's left of it. So here I was in February, starting the AT, starting off with a bang. Basically still had my hiker legs, still had my hiker hunger. Only been off the PCT for about 3 or 4 months. Now mind you, during that time, met the destiny, the woman of my dreams, and vice versa. We fell in love, hardcore, knowing we were meant to be together, knowing we would be getting married. I ended up proposing to her before I started on the AT, and we knew we would be married later this year, and we set that to be in October. Now going back to the AT, starting in February, was cranking along just fine, averaging about 18 miles a day. Some days up to 30, some days as low as 10 in the beginning, but that's including all the days of zeros and, times I was down with health problems that took me down for a couple days and whatnot, where I needed to rest the body, or rest the inward, so to speak. But making great time, ran into a couple issues, but only one that was pretty detrimental, I guess, or what could have been detrimental, and that was on the Roan Highlands, which is a range of 6 summits, right around the 6,000 range. Got hit with a blizzard while I was on it. There was really no way out. I had to go through the whole thing, and I couldn't camp because it was like minus 20 below and about 12 inches of snow, and it was horribly dangerous. So I went through 29 miles of a blizzard in one day just to be able to get back down to where it was dry ground again. Let me tell you, that was tough going through that. It was tough. The toughest day of hiking I've ever had in my life, and I've been in some pretty big doozies on summits and so forth, and storms. This was by far the toughest day of hiking, and I made it. And I'll tell you what, after you make something like that, you feel really good about yourself. Especially the next day where I was past it and I could look back and see the whole range covered in snow like this. And I'm like, wow, I just literally did that whole thing in a day. Makes you feel pretty darn good about yourself. So that one could have been dangerous, but ended up being epic. Some of the best video and pictures I've gotten of any day of hiking in my life. Just absolutely beautiful in every which way. But I continued on, was way ahead of schedule, even got to go home for a few weeks and see my fiance and spend some time with her before heading back out. And then went through Pennsylvania, or the end of Pennsylvania to New Jersey, and New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Unfortunately, around about 50 miles left of New York, I started having a lot of pain. I had really jacked up my left foot, twisted it quite a few times, sprained it. It's a really strong foot, really strong ankle, because I twist it quite often, and I never hurt it because it is strong. I don't have high shoes or anything like that. I'm going to try not to ramble, but it's kind of hard for me not to ramble. It's what I do. But I digress. And I got injured. It sprained my ankle pretty good. I ended up breaking the small bone that goes through the pinky toe on the left foot, and I kept pushing through all the way through that 50 miles of New York, all the way through Connecticut, into about 20 or 30 miles or so of Massachusetts. That's right off the top of my head. I couldn't go on anymore. Could not go on anymore. And that's really tough on me because I don't stop for anything. I push through everything, as you probably could tell from the story about the broken back. I conquer when I put my mind to conquering, and made it really rough. But I called my fiance in Massachusetts and said, I think I'm done. I don't think I could go on. And of course, I put a lot of thought into this because I obviously pushed way past what I should have. But I was at that point now where the more I push, the more I'm going to damage it, and I could damage it permanently. I needed to give it rest. But the problem was there wasn't much time left. It was going to take, and it ended up taking about 4 weeks for it to rest, for sure. So it took some time, but the problem is after that 4 weeks, and of course I was home for all of this, I had no time to go back and finish because me and my baby were getting married. And that was numero uno on the priority list, is making her my wife. So I took those 4 to 5 weeks to rest. Everything healed up just fine. I pushed up a couple mountains just to make sure that everything was good. And everything was good. So then I did about a 75-mile section of the PCT that needed to be done that I did not get to finish the year before. But besides that, it was all about focusing on the wedding, getting everything prepared monetarily, the wedding itself, our honeymoon, getting everything prepared we needed to prepare for that, because that was the next big step in our lives as fiancés, boyfriend, girlfriend, now husband and wife. And I'm here to tell you that we are married and happily married, and been married going actually right at a month right now. 1 day shy of being 1 month anniversary of our wedding date, and it has been bliss. It has been beautiful. But obviously that's why I couldn't go back to do the AT, which brings us to present day, and let's talk about that. So the plan was to come back in 2024 and finish that 650 miles of the trail where I had to get off. That would have been left basically part of Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and then the AT would be completed. Mind you, it's a Thru-Hike. And the PCT, obviously there's a few hundred miles there that need to be finished because of wildfires. Totally different reason, of course. So, and just to reiterate, I could have went back and finished the AT after I healed up with the ankle and foot injury. But I couldn't do that because, obviously, we had a beautiful wedding ceremony and honeymoon to attend. To go to. Not attend, but to have. Wow. That was a weird way of saying that. We attended our own wedding and honeymoon. Oh my goodness. But that was the big reason, obviously, that I couldn't go back and do it this year. And I was 100% happy with that. I am 100% happy with that. The one thing, though, that really bugs me, it eats at me every day, and I'm just being honest and real with you. I have something that's unfinished. I have something that is not complete, is not done, is not conquered. That is really hard for me. I'm not a procrastinator. If I think of doing something, I do it right then. I'm spontaneous. You heard my story about the PCT. I put that together and got gear and everything else as quick as I could and got out there on that trail. Got a last-minute permit to be able to do that as well. The AT has been something I've wanted to do for a long time, or at least parts of it that I hadn't already done, just because we used to go to the Smokies every year when I was a kid, and I was really fond of that area. So obviously going there last year, like, sweet, I'm taking this thing. It's not really was on a bucket list, but I guess it was on the bucket list for the last year because I made up my mind I was going to do all 3 of them, and I had to do it. It's just something that I had to do. Again, the symbolism of what it is to me to conquer and overcome these things, which brings me to another point that I want to say. Today is the 20th year anniversary of the day my daughter passed away. It's been very rough at times. It was very rough in the beginning. What they say is 100% true. There is nothing harder than losing a child. And it was really rough for the first few years. Just being able to deal with that emotionally and overcoming and everything else. Not all things you can overcome is like the snap of a finger and like, oh, I'm strong, I can get through this. No, sometimes it's a battle, up and down, back and forth. From there, a lot of things was lost. My parents, my best friends, and it was all tragic. It was, nothing was just natural, it seemed like. Just people dropping left and right for a long time. I thought it was me, like the people that are close to me just ended up going away. And obviously that's not how I feel now. Just, it definitely came into my mind as evil voices that tell you those kind of things that we give space to that we shouldn't. So that kind of gives you a little background. And then from there, in the last 4 or 5 years before the PCT, just horrible health, a couple of mini strokes, several surgeries, Almost lost my life on the table on one of them. Stopped breathing in the surgery. They had to do something, I'm not really sure what, to get me breathing again, but that caused me to have a couple of seizures and had a brain embolism. Just a really bad time, and then really bad diagnosis here about 5-ish, 6-ish years ago, in which that timestamp was given of how long I had to go, and that was kind of my wake-up call that things needed to change. I did not go the chemical way, the chemo way. I went the natural way and decided I was going to do everything I can, change my diet, change drinking and smoking and whatever else I was doing at that point to put more poison in my body and change it around and, fight this thing. And I did. And I started doing so much physical activity. I was going to make myself strong, whether it's the last thing I did or not. I started doing things on my bucket list, though, just in case. Because at the end of the day, I believe that we should live every day like it's our last, but be ready to live forever. That's my motto, is live life. And that's when I started living life. Another one of my mottos, which this is not mine, I didn't make it up, but I definitely love it, and that's the fact that you get 2 lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one. And that was my wake-up call that day right then. So here we are almost 6 years later, still fighting, stronger than I've ever been in my life. And at the beginning of the PCT, I remember saying, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest, and I'm not the youngest, but it's hard to find anybody with a stronger mind than me. And that's still the case. I push through anything. The only difference is now I'm a lot stronger, I'm a lot faster, and I feel like I'm younger. Trying to reverse it as much as I can and do everything I can to live this life and live it as long as I can, especially now that I've met my destiny, the love of my life. We plan on living another 50 years and enjoying this adventure together for another 50 years. But going back to the 20th year anniversary of my daughter, that was probably the biggest one. I mean, it was the biggest one, and it kind of snowballed, just one thing after another for many, many years, just all kinds of things. And I realized how strong I am. People tell me all the time, wow, you're so strong, I don't know how you can keep going on, how you haven't given up. Because that's out of my nature. I don't give up, I don't quit. And that's what these mountains and the trails are all about for me. It's climbing that mountain, putting it in the bag, because it's a symbol of something I've had to overcome in my life to keep on living, and I'm all about overcoming. Which brings me back to the Appalachian Trail. There's something left undone. And yes, I could go back and do that 650 miles and add to it and complete the miles needed for the Appalachian Trail. But that's not enough. So here it is, the big announcement. In 2024, 90 days from today, I will start at the beginning of the Appalachian Trail and complete 2,200 miles northbound. Complete the whole thing, even though I did 1,650 miles of it last year. I'm starting from point A and going to point B and putting that whole darn thing in the bag and complete it and be victorious and win it. People might not understand why I have to do that, but that is the true Thru-Hike, not breaking it up into 2 different sections, even though it was something beyond my control. And I wouldn't change a thing about last year and what happened and my beautiful wife and bride and ceremony and honeymoon and even the injuries and everything else that happened. I wouldn't change a dang thing. But this year, you're going to see some laser focus. You've probably seen some focus last year, the way I put those miles on and the way I pushed through adversity, but this year even more so, because the AT will get finished this year, God willing. And then after that, I will finish the miles that I have on the PCT, God willing, so that both will be complete this year. So I will only have the CDT to do next year on my 50th birthday. That's the plan, and I don't make plans, but this plan is going to be stuck to as much as I possibly can, unless it's something completely out of my control. But I will push through all kinds of things to make it happen. So, in 90 days from today, in February of 2024, Fortune will be back on the Appalachian Trail, going northbound to Mama Kay, Mount Katahdin, and putting those mountains in the bag on the way. And at the end of all of it in 2024, my new Thru-Hiker magazine will be out. Live, the very first issue, so y'all can see it. The journey begins in that one as well, and I can't wait. That's my brainchild that I've been working on and looking at coming out for a long time, and it will be in 2024 at the end of the hiking season, around October-ish, somewhere around there. Don't have an exact date yet, but of 2024. But let your friends know. I plan on doing what I always do. Lots of people told me last year and on the PCT that I show a lot more of the trail, a lot more of the beauty than most videos out there. I'm not trying to be better than anybody, but I am trying to show as much as possible, because my whole thing is I want you to feel like you're out there. And once again, I'm raising awareness for osteoporosis. I will be raising awareness for osteoporosis during the whole Triple Crown attempt, the rest of the PCT, all of the AT, and all of the CDT. So join me. Let your friends, let your family, anyone who wants to see some strength and wants to see some trail and wants to back me up, because the more support I have and the more people I have saying their prayers for me, the better I'm going to be and the more powerful I'm going to be, because I could feel that right here in my soul when people are supporting me and backing me up. Thank you for watching this very long video, but now you get a little bit of the gist and understand a little bit about what's going on. I love you, Christina. I will see you all on this channel in the next video, but I'll definitely see you on the Appalachian Trail in 90 days. Live life.